Truth is making a comeback. America's Top Stories with Leesa K. Donner.
We heard a lot about the State of the Union this week, our rip-roaring economy, time to pull back on fighting wars all over the world, and an upcoming summit with North Korea. But what about the office of the presidency and the man himself? What is the state of the presidency regarding perhaps the most controversial man to occupy the Oval Office in a very long time? Has he grown into the job? Is he prepared to continue the fight? Is his presidential stock, so to speak, going up or down? Joining me now to answer that question is Liberty Nation's chief political correspondent, Graham J. Noble. Welcome.
Hi, Leesa.
So last night, it seemed like the President of the United States kind of hit his stride. He seemed to command his audience. What was your take on that speech?
Yes, I agree. I think it was, he seemed to, as I wrote today in Liberty Nation, actually, he seems to have grown into his office. I can't really put my finger on the exact difference between this year and last year. But he certainly seemed more, I don't know, commanding, more relaxed, more confident, even, if you like. If it's possible to say that Donald Trump has ever seemed not confident, but yeah, I definitely think he seemed to have grown into the role of president, if you like.
It's interesting that he sort of hit his stride, and the Democrats, let's just say there was something conciliatory about last night. It seemed like the Democrats weren't all sort of to make Trump look bad at every turn. There seemed something conciliatory, I noticed. Did you?
Yes, I definitely felt that. I think it was such a strong speech, and I think it hit so many notes that, under any normal presidency, for want of a better term, there were so many things that Trump said that even the Democrats really couldn't argue with, because there are a lot of the things that in the past their party has supported. I do notice that today, last night and today, it's interesting that the establishment media, the left-leaning media, is absolutely in hysterics trying to pull this speech apart and criticize him. But in terms of the Democrats themselves, I think it really is very difficult for them to come out with any major objections to the substance of his speech.
Right. They're obviously not coming out swinging, but despite all the backdrop of the special counsel, would you say that Mr. Trump is sounding more focused and able to sort of thin out the noise?
Yes, I really do. And, I think it's the way that the Mueller investigation is progressing, actually. And I think it really comes down to the fact that there is a sense that investigation is, it may not be ending, within the coming weeks, but that it is definitely kind of, it's past its peak of frenzy, if you like. And it's coming down gradually, maybe slowly, but gradually winding down. And I think for that reason, the president feels, I think, less distracted by it, maybe less irritated by it. And I believe that he feels that he is a little freer to focus on his agenda rather than fretting about the investigation, which I believe he probably went through a period where he was doing quite a lot of.
Yeah, you make a good point, and it seems to me that the Dems are taking him a little bit more seriously than they did at first. I mean, at first they tried the business of, he's crazy and he's sort of, not all mentally there. Then they tried everything, every which way but loose. But they seem to indicate that what he has done in some areas has made some sense.
Yeah, and I think it's hard for them to rationally argue that that is not the case. And I also think perhaps that now, even though we're something like, 19, 20 months out from the next general election, the Democratic field is already taken shape to an extent. And I almost think that the Democrats are starting to look now more towards 2020, and perhaps they are realizing that the hysterical and irrational accusations and finger pointing that they've been doing since Trump took office, basically, is not really seeming to work out for them very well, despite their success in the midterms. They do better when they talk about policies. For instance, talking about healthcare was one of the things that really brought them that success in the midterms. And I think they're realizing that the more that they scream and shout about Trump being a white supremacist and being crazy and unfit for office and all the rest of it is not really getting them a lot of traction. And I think now they're thinking about 2020 and they're thinking, well, perhaps we have to focus maybe a little more on the issues now.
Well, you could be right. They seem to be tacking a different direction. And part of it is that the approval ratings that came out this week, I mean, just off the street, they were just enormous, about 75%. I mean, the legacy media can play their fact-checking and all their nonsense, but I think the people pretty much had their say when they gave such high approval ratings to the State of the Union message.
Yeah, it really was. Actually, I was looking at the CBS News poll, and according to that poll, about 3/4 of the people who watched the State of the Union address approved of Trump's message. And I think specifically when it came down to the immigration thing, I believe it was something like 72% perhaps agreed with Trump's remarks on immigration, and about 70 or 71%, I think it was, agreed with his assertion that there is indeed a crisis on the southern border. And only about 24% of the people polled said they disapproved of the speech. So that's hard to argue. That's hard to even for the Democrats. It's hard to ignore numbers like that.
Indeed, it is. Thank you so much for joining us today on Truth is Making a Comeback. Graham J. Noble, Chief Political Correspondent. Thanks, Graham.
Thank you, Leesa.
Truth is making a comeback. Visit us at libertynation.com.